Hello everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and let's mull over Zenless Zone Zero and give my first impressions with the game. And by first impressions, I'm using that by the definition of the phrase first impressions. I've not gotten too far into the game, and I got out of what I think is the tutorial. There's a lot to this game that I think is really cool, especially for gacha games, but there's a few crippling flaws or just aspects to this game that are out of its own control, but because of them, I don't know how much of this game I will actually end up playing. Let's talk about it. So let's go over the pros first before we get to the 2 or 3 main issues I have with it. And by issues, I'm not even necessarily saying problems with the game, just more circumstances surrounding the game, and the more personal things. Okay, what do I really like about the game? I think it's highly stylized, and because it's highly stylized, a lot of its actual decisions that it goes with, in terms of things like the voice acting, character design, the art style, and the storytelling, work because of the stylization behind the game. This will be a recurring theme. The voice acting is S tier. It's super good alongside the music. I love the manga/comic book-esque storytelling style they have for large swaths of the story. One of my biggest issue when it comes to other gacha games like Genshin, Honkai Star Rail, Wuthering Waves, etc., is the actual storytelling devolving to a bunch of NPCs standing in a circle with plain expressions on their face, spouting exposition 5 times over. They don't, at least up to the point I'm at, they haven't done that. In fact, the story, while being kind of basic, flowed. The character interactions with one another were fun and interesting and just a pleasure to listen to. The strong voice acting, Billy being a standout to me.
Wait! Put your plate down! I'll tell you! It's really the late-night drama actress from... Oh, sweetie. Monica.
Really drives home everything. And the game can be funny at times, like that one guy yelling swears about trying to take out the gang on national television.
What? You found the red thing? Then what are you waiting for, Commander? Pick the biggest gun and rain down justice!
I thought that was funny. The facial expressions, just the overall art style really drives home the game on the whole. And I think the game overall, when you're actually playing it, is really smooth. And I'm playing on the PC version. I think the characters themselves feel fun, and there's a couple aspects to the combat that I really do appreciate. I like the fact that each character has a list of combos, even if they're simple, because I think the overall moveset really smoothly flows into each other. And the abilities work well when pairing them with others. And I love that party member swap mechanic, and the animation that go alongside them, almost as if they're tagging themselves in and out. The combat so far is extremely easy, but I kind of expect that for the beginning of a game. However, when you're necessarily hitting your buttons, and you're chaining together various abilities, or swapping between various characters, building your gauge and then spending it, it's kind of nice. And when you pair that fast-paced gameplay alongside the story actually being, I don't know if I would say interesting, I would say engaging. It's fun. But it also does a thing a lot of other gacha games struggle with, and that's showing, not telling. They showed the mutation of that guy at the beginning through the comic book storytelling style. And it makes the entire thing hit harder because they show this guy transform. The voice acting alongside it is really strong and drives home the entire scene. And the game overall is really just fun and bombastic in that regard. And you pair that alongside the art for those comic book scenes being beautiful, and I think this game will have some staying power to it. Now let's go into my main cons and negatives when it comes to Zenless Zone Zero, and like I said before, these aren't even necessarily critiques for the game itself, just circumstances on the whole. The market is really saturated. Like, at the end of the day, it is. And from my first impressions with Zenless Zone Zero, after only about an hour, so again, I'm not like saying this is the definitive breakdown of the quality of the game or anything like that, but I'm just saying, after an hour with the game, has it made me not want to play my other 2 main gacha games, Honkai Star Rail and Wuthering Waves? Would I want to sacrifice time playing those games to play this? Not particularly, and I think it's one of those games where it's like, if I have a bunch of free time that I can spend on ZZZ, then I can understand why I would want to log in and play, because I think the game itself is pretty fun. I have another main issue when it comes to ZZZ, and that is the actual combat. I think overall, what you do is fine. They haven't really shown me much about what the enemies can do, and it just kind of seems as if they stand around attacking every now and then, and you can do a basic dodge, and then just capitalize on comboing on them. A combat system like this, to really draw me in, needs to have interesting mechanics that the enemies themselves can do, and the game just has not shown me that. I understand I'm really near the beginning, so I'm not saying that the game doesn't have that. I'm just saying, if you want to hook me as a player, especially in a market that is as saturated as gacha games are becoming, you have to hook players early. And if you fail to do so, and you fail to give players that justification for sticking around and experiencing what comes later down the line in the game, then it'll be harder to retain that core audience of players. I'm sure it'll get that. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the game's gonna fail or anything. I don't think it will. But if I want a combat system like this, there's other games that I haven't played yet, like Devil May Cry, that I feel would give me this combat loop, or at least this flavor of combat and gameplay, just done and executed better. Had I already played those games and games like that to death, and I just wanted something new, then sure, I can see the reason why people would flock to a game like ZZZ, because it's gonna be iterative, it's gonna be a live service game, it's gonna continually get updates and stuff like that. I can understand that line of thinking, but for the position I'm in, I still have those other games available to me that I do want to get to at some point in time. Now, the third one is one that is, I think, more... It's personal preference, don't get me wrong, but it's more in line with what's in the game itself, and that is the actual character design. I can't say I'm a particular fan of them. Now, it's actually kind of funny, because the character they introduced to you at the very beginning, I do like. The monotone girl, I think she's fun. Billy's a bag of fun. Nicole looks great. I'm even fine with the MCs. And the little rabbit dudes, the Bang Boos, love them. Probably one of the best gacha mascots I've seen. But when it comes to every other character in this game, I can't say any particularly caught my eye, and I'm like, oh, I really want to play with those characters, or I really want to see them in the story at some point. I'm also just not that big of a fan of the furry aesthetic that some characters have, but even the non-furry characters just don't particularly catch my eye. And in a game like a gacha game, where they're going to ask you to come in and grind over and over and over again so that you can have access to try and at least pull for these characters that are upcoming, if you don't like the character design, well then, it kind of compromises one of your big motivating factors to continue playing the game in the grind. I'm not saying they're bad, I'm just saying that personal preference at the end of the day is a thing, and while there's a lot of aspects to ZZZ aesthetically that I do like and enjoy, one of those aspects, like the character design, just doesn't do a whole lot for me. I think one of my favorite aspects to the game though, like, even if I don't play any more of the game, I probably will at some point, but just like, if I don't, I'm really glad the game exists simply for the storytelling. It's been one of my biggest crippling flaws with a lot of gacha games, is that the way they tell a story is really simplistic and one-dimensional, and there's a few great cutscenes and amazing cutscenes, but a lot of the really memorable stuff is relegated to trailers or cinematics that are outside of the game, that are used to more generate hype for future content, rather than being in-game. That's not really the case with ZZZ. I haven't seen too many of the trailers, but the stuff in-game was fun. We didn't need, like, world-ending catastrophes or anything like that. It has that urban aesthetic. A lot of people compare the game and its overall UI and aesthetic to Persona. Very lightly, I'd argue, but I think it does work. And I think the city hub, depending upon where they go with it in the future, could be really cool and memorable. Especially if they allow that location to evolve and change over time. There's a lot in ZZZ that I think oozes and emanates personality and character. So if someone says they really enjoy ZZZ, I can perfectly understand why. Because honestly, I do enjoy the game. It's just, there's so many other games out there, and I already play Wuthering Waves and Honkai Star Rail, and I really enjoy those games. On top of the fact that I also play Final Fantasy XIV, and I want to be able to play other games, do I really have time for another gacha game like this? Yes, if it really grabs me. It needs to grab me with both hands, and I think this one only grabbed me with like one, if that makes sense. Now, if you have plenty of time, or you just want another game, I can completely see why people will be like, hey, this game is really cool. I'm a fan of hard games. I'm a bit of a connoisseur. I don't think every game needs to necessarily be that difficult. I think enemies attacking like once every 15 seconds could be a big issue down the line. I'm not going to particularly point it out because I haven't gotten far enough to really solidify that, because I only really played the introduction and tutorial parts. And I think most of the issues I have with ZZZ are absolutely workable and fixable solutions. They have multiple modes of difficulty in-game already. There's a casual, more story-focused mode for people that don't want to really pay attention to gameplay. And then there's what they call a hard mode, what kind of feels just like normal mode. They could add a hard mode, up the rate of attacks by enemies and stuff like that. And they could release characters that are just more intriguing to me down the line. Like, they are entirely capable of doing that at some point. It's just ZZZ is releasing when a whole bunch of other stuff is also coming out for me that I care more about, and I don't particularly want to miss out on that stuff for ZZZ because it hasn't grabbed me more than those other things like the Elden Ring DLC or the new expansion for Final Fantasy XIV or the new version for Wuthering Waves. It's not necessarily a knock on ZZZ, it's just a consequence of how saturated the market is starting to become, in my opinion. I do hope a lot of other games look to ZZZ and be like, hey, maybe we don't have to repeat every piece of exposition 5 times over. Maybe we can try new and interesting things when it comes to storytelling and not just have characters stand around in a circle yapping to each other. Maybe we can do that. I don't think everything needs to borrow necessarily the manga/comic aesthetic, but just not being afraid to take a risk and trying something new, I think can pull off, or at least work. I think that does work in ZZZ. So with that, I think I'll call the video there for the day. I may or may not play more of this game, and if I do, I'll give updated impressions and just we'll see how the game progresses. What I want you to do is let me know in the comments down below if you think I should continue. Should I play more of this game? Do you think, hey, Jmulls, just give the game another chance, you'll probably like it later on? Let me know, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Or do you think the issues I have kind of continue to carry over, etc., etc.? So let me know. And also let me know how you've been enjoying ZZZ. That's the more important part. How have you been enjoying the game? Love to hear your thoughts, hear your impressions, and hear your perspectives. Stay safe, have a great day. Leave a like and subscribe. It really helps channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again!